The judge is the father figure in the courthouse, in the courtroom. And if the judge wants a conviction, it's pretty easy for him to steer the jury toward a conviction, not necessarily just through his rulings on what's hearsay, what's in, what's out during the course of the trial. As we saw when Stormy took the stand, when Costello was on the stand, he's very biased against the defense both times. Never mind Cohen. But in the jury instructions, which are already going the prosecution's way, they're not coming out the final jury instructions, which will determine how this case breaks. Absolutely. Are not yet done. He's going to approve them as of Wednesday. But the rulings so far are not good. The judge right now, or the defense right now, is trying to get the word willfully added to 2 places in the instructions, which is a part of the legal requirements. They have to show willfulness on the part of Donald Trump that he did these things knowingly, willfully. That's an element of criminal law. And it's not a gimme. The judge has reserved judgment on whether he's going to put that in there. That's the central argument of the case, that, was Trump willingly doing something unlawful. And now he's basically siphoned it down to what the prosecution needs to prove is that Trump falsified business records to hide an underlying crime. But crime may be too strong, Rich, because the prosecution is now arguing, presumably in the wake of, the weaknesses being exposed on this campaign finance allegation, that it doesn't really have to be a crime. When they say an unlawful act was trying to be hidden, it could be a tortious act. It could be a breach of contract. It could be defamation. They're arguing right now it's crime or just generic unlawful conduct that, who knows? This is what Andy's been saying. Could be like a violation of what, like Russian law, Sharia law? What are they talking about?
Yeah, I mean, our whole system is based, right, on you set out the crime really specifically, right? So everyone knows what it is, and the defendant knows what it is. And this was an outrage from the beginning. The indictment didn't tell us what the supposed second offense was. And you kind of figured maybe, by the time there was a trial or during the course of the trial, we'd know what the second offense is or is alleged to be. And we don't. They don't. It's out in the ether there. It's something. So this, whatever happens in this case, I do think this is one of the things, maybe again, here I'm being overly optimistic. Over time, everyone's going to realize this is a travesty. I'm not saying like tomorrow, but, 10 years from now when the histories are written. And just to be clear, I'm not giving, for Rangers fans out there, a Mark Messier type 1994 guarantee that Trump's going to get off. I just think that the chances of him getting off, getting a hung jury are higher than I would have thought going in.
Charles,
the judge is a big problem. No doubt.
You guys have been, you ran a piece by Brad Smith not long ago. This whole case, we've had him on the show, former FEC commissioner appointed by Bill Clinton. And he's been jumping up and down on this case. And thus the Trump team tried to call him as an expert witness and they were rejected twice. I mean, once at the beginning of the trial and then once at the end of the trial, they were going to call him as a witness. And the judge so limited what he could say that it was pointless to do. But he had a great thread on X yesterday trying to point out what an absurd position this judge has left the defense in. I'm just going to read you part of it. He writes, Judge Merchan has so restricted my testimony that the defense decided not to call me. It's, of course, elementary that the judge instructs the jury on the law, but federal election campaign law is very complex to the point where even Antonin Scalia said it's so intricate, I can't figure it out. Keeping going here with what Brad posted. He says, someone has to bring this specific knowledge of this act and what it requires and what it doesn't to the jury. Part of the state's case is that they wrongly reported, the Trump team did, what they knew to be a campaign expenditure in order to hide the payment until after the election. And then he says, but an expenditure made on October 27th when the money was sent to Stormy Daniels' lawyer would not under law be reported until December 8th, a full 30 days after the election, to Rich's point a moment ago. Even the payment, never mind the documentation of it, none of it would have been happening until after the election. And he goes on to say, the judge allowed Michael Cohen to go on at length about whether and how his activity violated the Federal Election Campaign Act. He let Michael Cohen essentially testify as a legal witness, as an expert legal witness. So effectively, the jury got its instructions on this law from Michael Cohen, with an exclamation point added by Brad Smith, concluding that this judge's bias is very evident. And now this jury is going to be going in there with nothing better than Michael Cohen's assertions when it comes to whether there was an underlying unlawful act in Trump somehow violating campaign finance laws.
Yeah, well, this is an example of what David French used to call Trump law, where at no point in the process does someone stand up and say, you know, this isn't really how we do it. And at all stages in these cases, this one being another good example, I keep waiting for someone to intervene and say no, but they don't. So you have this mens rea requirement, which needs fleshing out, and the details of what is a federal law, not a state law, that needs fleshing out. And you have a judge who is capable of insisting on a more classically liberal approach to the defendant, but hasn't. And I just don't know how to square that with the way that those who have brought this case and are cheerleading this case tend to see criminal justice matters. And if you were to describe what you just described to your average left-of-center Trump critic, but not mention that the case had to do with Donald Trump, or anyone who'd been president for that matter, or anyone in public life, they would be outraged by it. The expert witness would be deemed mandatory. They might even argue that the Constitution required the provision of expert witnesses. There'd be some penumbra in the Fifth Amendment that required it. But because it's Trump, once again, we just gloss over it. I think this is the big legal story of the last 8 years, that so many people who call themselves liberals have abandoned everything they ever believed about the presumption of innocence, about the degree to which it's incumbent upon the prosecution to prove their case and provide juries with necessary information, the value of the right to remain silent, and so on and so forth. All of these things have just gone out of the window whenever it is Trump. And you read these sort of Archie Bunker style screeds in our elite opinion outlets from people who just would not adopt that worldview otherwise. And this is another example of it. And you said the judge is biased, perhaps. Bias, certainly inconsistent. I mean, it is an inconsistency that is glaring and that galls me as somebody who has a real pronounced soft spot for the defense.
That's what's so different about, I think, you guys and the left. National Review are not big fans of Trump. The editorials and the writers, and there's some who I think probably most of you will vote for him, but definitely not your first choice and been openly critical about him. But you're sane, and you can see objectively through your opinion what's right and what's wrong when it comes to the treatment of Trump. I can't say the same for the left that hates Trump. There really is something called Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, You see it, Rich. Like, they do get deranged when it comes to him, where they don't care about the things Charlie was just talking about. The ends justify the means. And the end of stopping Trump is the ultimate end above all ends.
Yeah. So this case is so bad. There have been some folks left of center who have said, this is not a good idea. This doesn't stand up. This isn't the way to go. But it's not most, right? The majority are just willing to go along because they assume it will hurt Trump. And as we've seen Trump sort of tiptoeing through the raindrops and probably getting most of these cases delayed, except for this one, you've had people on the left frankly openly writing, well, it was a really bad idea to rely on the criminal justice system to stop them, which just shows that they're using it for political means, right? That was the whole purpose, of all this, the whole rush to do it before the election. And with the Bragg case, it has to be a 2024 thing, right? If he did it in 2023, it'd be old news by now. If he does it in 2025, he either can't do it because he's elected president, or it doesn't really matter much because Trump will presumably, if he loses, be mostly politically defanged. Who knows? I've said that before and it hasn't been true, but probably would be the case now. So he has to do it now. It's an election event, right? It's not a trial. It's an election event. And if nothing else happens, again, the time spent in a courtroom, 4 days a week, a presidential candidate during a presidential campaign. The cliche is a campaign's most precious resource is the candidate's time. And he's trying to make the most of it being there, right? He has press availabilities before and afterwards, but often they're about the trial themselves. It doesn't look great, behind steel barriers. And he has some Republicans sort of backing them up, but it must better out there doing rallies where you can take down names and organize and energize people. So if nothing else, for a month or more, Bragg has kept a presidential candidate from doing what a presidential candidate should be free to do in a free country. That itself is an outrage. But again, there's almost no one on the other side who will say, I don't like Trump. I don't want him to win. I don't think he should have done this hush money payment. I think he's dishonest, but don't do it this way. That's where they're never willing to go. They're never willing to say, but the process is too important. The legalities are too important. The technicalities matter. Never, because the overriding goal is all they care about.
Grand Canyon University, a private Christian university in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, believes in equal opportunity and that the American dream starts with purpose. Change the world for good by putting others before yourself. Whether your pursuit involves a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, GCU's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. With over 330 academic programs as of September, GCU meets you where you are and provides a path to help you fulfill your dreams. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Let it flourish. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.